Welcome to the Advanced Sports Analytics Show here on RotoGrinders, brought to you by Jock Market. Stop throwing your money away. It's time to check out Jock Market, the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. Buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. Download now for a 100% deposit match up to $50 using the promo code GRINDERS. And get this, if you don't turn a profit this week, Jock Market is running back their first market guarantee to cover your losses this week. So download Jock Market in the App or Play stores or check out jockmarket.com, JOCKMKT.com, and use the code GRINDERS for a 100% deposit match up to $50 on your first deposit. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD. If you want to follow me there on Twitter, joined by the man behind the numbers and the dials that are probably working overtime for this week. Probably have to refresh that. The hamsters are running around constantly. They're looking at you going, this again? What's the news? It's Stewart Gibson from Advanced Sports Analytics. We just got word that Dalvin Cook is now on the COVID list. So I'm assuming you got to run everything again. The Chiefs, Kelsey and Hill, they're on the COVID list. They may come off the COVID list. Austin Eckler's on it. He may come off it. Stewart, how you dealing with this week when we're doing this on Thursday before the holiday break? It's quite possible that anything we say right now means nothing come Sunday.
Yeah, I'm taking it piece by piece and not trying to rerun the wheel every time something comes out, because it just seems like one of these weeks that the pool of players that are going to be available and not available are going to be constantly in flux. I mean, I think talking about ahead of the show, last week it was kind of just figuring out who was going to be out. And I think we actually had a pretty clear picture of that heading into the weekend, especially once the games that were postponed were announced to be so. Yeah, I mean, this week is just a mess. I mean, guys coming back from COVID, guys going on to the COVID protocol, guys going onto the protocol who might come off of the protocol. It's going to be a mess. Right now, just working under the assumptions of kind of who's in and who's out as of now. That could obviously, all this stuff could change. Certainly doesn't help having this come ahead of the holiday weekend, but we'll keep an eye on it. Definitely, I think good to pay attention to Vegas totals in times of uncertainty like these. Have to imagine that they're going to be pretty quick and pretty sharp in moving things around, as some of these key players are going to get ruled in and out. It looks like it's going to be a week where there's going to be plenty of good value plays to be had. It's going to open up a lot of value. Running back with Cook likely out, potentially with Eckler out.
Leonard Fournette is out.
Yeah, of course, Fournette, and Jones is looking like good value. It's just going to be a lot to keep eyes on as the week unfolds. We'll try to parse through though what we have as of now.
Well, we got a very similar week to last week, where the totals of these games are not very high. We have the highest total, 48.5. The lowest is 40.5, and a ton of games in that 40 to 45 range. I mean, really, it's a 48.5 total in the Rams-Vikings game. Then it goes down to 45.5, and then it just kind of slides down from there. We got some teams with a little bit good team totals because the spreads are fairly high. So let's first talk about the highest total game on the slate, because whether or not it's a plus or a minus, I think we're still going to be looking at chalky pieces. We're going to be looking at fairly condensed teams on how they attack. So even if you don't stack it up, You're probably still playing one-off pieces from it, and that's the Rams at the Vikings. It's a 48.5 total. Rams are favored by 3.5 currently. The implied team total for the Rams, 26. Vikings, 22.5. I mean, on either side, even on DraftKings at 9,100, with the value that's available, Cooper Kupp is still most likely going to be the chalkiest player on the slate. But it's quite possible that Stafford, Stafford will still get owned. With Cook out, that brings Madison into the question. He's a little bit priced up more on DraftKings at 6,800, but he's still underpriced. FanDuel, on the other hand, still left him at 5,500. He's probably going to be 1,000,000% owned there. Stafford plus Kupp plus Madison or plus Jefferson. We still need to know whether or not Thielen is back. You could always pair the second receiver with Stafford with OBJ, Van Jefferson, Higbee, assuming if he's back. Is there any way around? I mean, this is the best game environment on the slate. What do your tools say as far as like Stafford, the Stafford end of the equation with Kupp being so owned? Do you think a better way to play it? I know he only had like 87 passing yards on Monday Night Football, but do you think the sharper way to play this is maybe you could play Kupp but play from the Cousins side, or is that too low win probability for you?
Yeah, we like that side. We've got not so great grades on the Los Angeles side from a simulation standpoint. Like I think Kupp checks out as, a good value and pretty accessible at that price point, just given the value we're expecting at running back. But we're not super high on doing like a big Los Angeles stack. But we have pretty strong grade on the Minnesota side. So going something like Cousins plus Jefferson plus Kupp. I think you could even do Cousins plus Madison. In kind of these situations, Madison has been pretty productive pass catcher out of the backfield. If Thielen doesn't go, do like KJ Osborne a good bit. I think, something like Cousins, Osborne, Jefferson, Kupp makes a lot of sense. And, you're going to get good leverage against these Madison Kupp combos. Like I think probably more than anything, we'll just see a lot of Kupp Madison one-offs or kind of not one-offs, I guess secondary correlations. So maybe heavying up on the Minnesota side and still getting, that correlated exposure to Kupp, we think makes a lot of sense. So that would be kind of how I would look to attack this game. And yeah, I mean, I feel fine with going with the
Do you have any
side.
correlation metrics on Cooper Kupp and the opposing running back?
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick.
I know that's something that you could look at advancedsportsanalytics.com. Because my question here, typically when we get very high owned one-offs, like I'm typically, I'm looking a way to play them differently, which means play it with a secondary correlation, play it inside of a stack, just so you're not playing like a 32% on Cooper Kupp on the island. I'd rather like Cousins get there, or even if Stafford gets there, something happens more correlatively that less of the field is going to play. So I'm thinking in terms of like how strong is the correlation between Kupp and I would look up the Madison one, but we don't have enough of a sample size of like Madison plus opposing wide receivers. But I'm thinking more on the fact of like how to Kupp opposing wide receivers and opposing running backs like fair, and is the correlation worth, like, it seems weird to say that like Kupp plus Madison will be a very heavily owned combination, but is the correlation worth it?
Yeah, so Kupp and I'm looking at this year. I do think Kupp's role this year compared to last is, I don't know, tangibly different. He still was wide receiver 1 last year, but it seems like he's kind of hit a new level as far as usage. Slight negative correlation with opponent running backs, negative 0.16. So neutral to negative. Kupp opposing QB, I find interestingly enough, negative 0.40. So strong negative correlation between Kupp and
they've had a lot of blowouts. Stewart.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I'm
I
assuming
guess.
that's the case.
Yeah. So, I guess that could be skewed by just those data points of blowouts. But if uh, Cup's best games come in, and I would say Cup's performance is strongly correlated with just the overall performance of the Los Angeles offense. But if Cup's best games, Los Angeles's best games come in blowout scenarios, right? That would tend to suggest like a not a great spot for trying to run it back. Essentially, this idea of doing like a big Minnesota game stack versus Cup. Um,
Or would the data suggest more of the fact of running more of a large Rams non-run back type of situation, playing Stafford? If we know that a lot of people are going to run back Cup stacks type lineups with Madison or Jefferson, do you think
Yeah.
a sharper play is to avoid that ownership and go just Stafford, Cup plus Higbee or OBJ and just like 3+0 it and be like, that is the way to play Cup differently and benefit from the supposed negative correlation being that Cup has all of his big games typically when the Rams are up by like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. I think could be an interesting way of doing it. Yeah, essentially you're saying you're expecting huge positive outcome for Cup, Stafford, Rams as a whole, and rather than trying to get caught up and acquiring, I guess, this positive correlation, if you believe that there's truly negative correlation between those guys in the opposition, yeah, just kind of letting the mini lineups that are going to go, say Stafford, Cup plus Madison or Jefferson, let them kind of miss on those Minnesota guys and yeah, deploy your lineup slots elsewhere.
Okay, that's the only game on the slate that is like a 48.5 is not like we've had slates where 48.5 was the 6th highest team the total on the slate. The rest are 45.5 or below, and obviously these totals may kind of flip flop a bit as players are in and players are out. But out of the rest of the games on the slate, compared to current ownership, and just to make it clear, so we're all both on the same page. I'm going under the assumption currently that Kelsey and Hill are going to play. So I don't know. In your stuff,
Yeah.
are you projecting it as if them playing, or are you projecting as if they're both out?
Yeah, we have. I know Hill for sure because I was looking at Kansas City a bit. We have Kelsey projected out, Hill projected in. So that could be why. So if there is a divergence in kind of thought,
Okay.
yeah, man, gonna be one of those weird weeks where like, based on what assumptions you make, things could appear quite differently.
That Chiefs game, do you have that Chiefs game compared to current projected ownership, depending on what you're looking at, as a plus or minus game?
Yeah, we have that as a plus, although I think our ownership projections are not as we're not projecting the ownership for Hill as high as I think it would be. Oh, I'm sorry. We're assuming that both Hill and Kelsey are out actually.
Okay, so that's why the divergence here. Like, I think if on this slate with the running back value that's available, I expect we have Hill currently in RG as 20% projected owned. So like we're going under the assumption. I mean, obviously this will change. I mean, by lock. I mean, we'll know. We'll probably know on Saturday. So obviously compared, like we almost, between me and you, it's hard to even discuss this game because you're looking at Mahomes plus Hardman plus Pringle type lineups, and I'm looking at like single stack Mahomes Hill lineups and the ownership that goes in comparison to both. But given the information that we do have, would you consider them, if we know that both of them are out? I think Byron Pringle's ownership goes up exponentially. Do you think that if they're out, it's plus? Do you think if they're in, it's like what? Depending on in and out status, would you give it a change your opinion on whether or not it's a plus or minus versus ownership?
Yeah, I think if they were out, you're going to see a lot of ownership on some of these guys. And I think I would prefer to be under if they're in. I would be pretty excited to play Hill or Kelsey plus Mahomes. Like I think Pittsburgh, I haven't been paying super close attention to what ownership has been versus Pittsburgh, but they haven't been as good of a pass defense this year as, they're kind of made out to believe as, this steel curtain. I mean, they've had such a strong defense for many years, but they've been pretty attackable through the air. And yeah, it's certainly like a kind of feasible lineup given how much savings we can expect at running back. So if they do both play, I'd be pretty interested in playing Mahomes plus one of those guys.
And I think you could get away with even a double stack if you don't play Cup.
Yeah,
right? Like you play Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill. You don't, and truthfully, I don't even think you need a Pittsburgh run back. I think they're overpriced. I think Harris and Johnson and Claypool is losing snaps. Freiermuth is okay if he comes back from a concussion, but like I don't trust Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball. I don't trust them staying in the game enough. If Kelsey and Hill have big games, I think it's more likely the Chiefs win, 34-3, then it's a competitive game and it's like 27-24.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like if they're out, this game could just go massively under. I would certainly be more interested in playing this side if these guys are in.
What other games on the docket do you believe compared to ownership? I mean, I just wanted to get the Chiefs one out of the way because I knew that we'd have some divergence in numbers based on who's in and who's out. But we're assuming that Eckler is out. That's what I have in mind. So what are the games do you believe are plus versus ownership?
Yeah, so we have some fairly strange ones bubbling to the top. Minnesota we touched on. Yeah, I mean, I think one game that has not a terrible total, and it's a team that I feel like you frequently are really not in favor of, but we've got Atlanta carrying pretty decent I guess value relative to ownership. 43 game figures to be reasonably competitive. Be interesting to see if DeAndre Swift comes back. Like he would be a guy, I'd be pretty interested in playing across from Atlanta, or if he doesn't, like looking at someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was great last week. That's a spot that we have showing up as quite strong. And really either side, although the numbers are coming across reasonably well for the Detroit side, but do get a little worried with David Blau, but maybe our models saying, hey, how much worse or kind of safe of a thrower can he be than Jared Goff? So
right. Yeah, I think Tim Boyle is going to start.
Yes, I'm sorry. Tim Boyle, David Blau. It's
but it doesn't really matter.
No, yeah, right. Yeah, correct. Tim Boyle. Yeah, so that to me, I think either side looks compelling, but more partial to the Atlanta side for sure.
No, I have that as a plus too. These are two disgusting teams that people don't want to play, but Matt Ryan projects actually very well. I mean, we haven't seen that much this year that the Falcons have a 24.25 implied total, and that's come down. They're playing at home inside the dome. We have a lot of games that are being played outside in the cold. Russell Gage at 5,900. I know it sounds disgusting, which is why I think psychologically people are going to stay away. But his past 5 games, 11, 6, 12, 7, 8 target wise, it's the Lions for crying out loud. So like why not play Ryan, Gage, Pitts, Patterson, some type of lineup like that? Maybe you don't even have to run it back. And if you do, you're probably playing Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think I think there's a very high variance spot, and I like targeting in GPP high variance spots. 2 crappy teams. So either it's going to be 10-3 or 42-35. Like that's the range of outcomes this game could possibly have. And from looking at current ownership, like really not much is there. So why not get on board Falcons, Lions, and just you hold your fingers, you hold your nose, and no, I'm with you. I consider this to be a plus game also, and the prices, like, none of these guys are like values. They're all like kind of efficiently priced, but you're not caring about median when it comes to GPP. You just care about ceiling, and with how many low total games there are on the slate. Like, if this is the game that goes nuts and none of the others do, like, this is the game that you'll need. Like, we don't have that many games to choose from that are good game environments, that I'd rather hope that 1 out of the 11 goes 20 points over the total, and I have that game. And with it being a high variance spot, I consider the Falcons and the Lions to be one of those spots.
Yeah, and I know, you say every week kind of you're happy to let people miss on him, but yeah, I think a decent week for Cordell Patterson. He's showing up as kind of a plus EV play in our numbers.
And he's gonna go way under owned, Stewart, because
it's
of all the other running back value that's on the slate.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a, you're really gaining leverage. I know you talk a lot about pricing leverage, right? On identifying what the kind of common or popular lineup structure, build structure will be. And I think we've kind of talked about it with these first 2 games that people are going to be comfortable paying up for wide receiver and potentially tight end with Kelsey, and down at running back. And, you kind of get I think a neat way to, and potentially pay up at, quarterback. Like, I think, some of these 6K and up guys are going to be 6.5K and up guys are going to be pretty popular. And this build just feels very different from how everyone, not how everyone, but how a large portion of the field is going to build lineups. So think a spot that's going to be different in a number of ways.
My plus game on the slate, which I did have the Falcons Lions as a plus. My other plus game is Bengals Ravens. The total's come down. The line has kind of flipped. We still have to figure out if Lamar Jackson is going to play. From a pace of play perspective, this game could be slow, right? The 2 teams that enjoy running the ball more than passing the ball. But in looking through a lot of the games on this slate, like, I take a look at games like Jets, Jaguars, right? 2 really bad teams. It doesn't fit that Falcons Lions dynamic, because these are 2 very inefficient offenses. Like the Jets and Jaguars, I don't look at them and go, big plays coming between Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow are much better quarterbacks. And even though the median projections on all of these skill players are efficient to slightly overpriced, the ceilings of these guys are just on this, like Marquise Brown, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mark Andrews, like any of these guys, Joe Mixon out of the backfield, even any of these guys could break 60-yard plays at any time. And that's all you need, is 1 or 2 of those. And the game goes from, a sloppy, slow run fest to, like the Packers Ravens game from last week, 31-30. So even though projection wise, I'm not a big fan of, like, median wise, they do not rate out very well. But I think people are going to be off of Lamar Jackson. I think he's is one of its cheapest prices. I think people tend to think the Ravens defense is good when they're not, especially pass coverage. They got like all the entire starting secondary from the beginning of the year is out, right? They're playing second and third string guys. From a ceiling perspective, I think I don't mind taking a shot on, single stack Lamars, like Lamar plus Browns, or double stack Burrows with Chase and Higgins, or maybe you throw in an Uzoma in there or a Tyler Boyd. You do something like that, and hope the big plays come. Do you have this game as a plus or a minus?
We've got it kind of in the middle, skewing towards minus. I guess I can see kind of where your head's at. Like, yeah, huge ceiling, low ownership. I'm gonna guess that the kind of bearishness on this game is coming from potential for slow play. Yeah, I mean there are a lot of a handful of really strong ceiling players in this game, but it is a handful, right? Like, Cincinnati can be tough to figure out at times. Baltimore with the kind of recent reemergence, I guess, of Mark Andrews. Uh, Brown, Bateman can be tough to figure out at times. So I think that could be where kind of it's coming from on our end. Yeah, I agree that they don't project super favorably, but yeah, from an ownership to ceiling, or ownership versus ceiling, for these guys, there definitely are a number of guys that stand out as super high ceiling relative to their ownership. My fear is that, I guess, with these offenses being potentially spread out, that it could be tough to pin down.
That'll keep people away.
Yeah, I mean that is true. Like, I think of, though, like, I don't know, teams that I'm happy to try to take shots on figuring out, even if they're spread out, or like these really fast pass heavy teams like Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Kansas City, less so, the run heavy, certainly teams that are going up against one another. Yeah, so I don't know. They're
I
not.
get it, but I mean, I'm comparing it to ownership. I understand exactly what you're saying. I agree with you. Just a matter of, like, if people are gonna stay away from this spot, like, I'm more inclined to lean a little bit more towards it.
Yep. No, I see the line of thought. It does make sense, just not showing up in our simulations. And that like, the funny thing about this week is that anything that looks potentially good or not good at the beginning of the week could. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so Stewart is fixing his microphone for a little bit. But yeah, but I do agree. Like, figuring out, if the game could end up being 28-21 and no one gets there because the production is spread around to everyone. But if that's going to lead people away from it, maybe I take a little bit of it. So Stewart, hopefully your mic is okay.
How are we doing
It
now?
sounds okay. Do you have a minus game?
Yeah, I mean, Los Angeles, like the Rams, we're looking like a kind of popular minus. I expect Philadelphia to be very popular. We kind of have them as middling. I think, yeah, we have them as middling. They're kind of I would say more of a slight plus than a minus, but certainly think, that is just like eye test, super popular, Eagles. They're a team that just doesn't really play fast and can be run heavy, but I think the popular stack is going to be Hurts, who doesn't really figure to get hurt in a huge way by the game skewing run heavy, and probably like Dallas Goedert, probably bring back of like Kenny Galladay or something, or maybe not bring back a giant at all. Yeah, what do you make of this Philly side or this game as a whole? They strike me as a team I would like to be under. They're showing up as kind of slight positives in our numbers. But yeah, curious to get your thoughts on this game. It is a bit puzzling to me as to where to, stand on this one.
No, I have it as a minus only because Hurts plus Goddard figures to be popular. I think I'm more inclined to maybe take a shot on Miles Sanders or Devonta Smith, right, to kind of get away from that. I'm not a big fan of anyone on the Giants, but I say Miles Sanders only because there are going to be other running backs in that range that are going to be way more owned than him. So if I want negative correlation against Hurts and Hurts Goddard stacks, I mean, Miles Sanders has like the most amount of touches without a touchdown. Maybe this is the game he does, but obviously, any touchdown that Sanders gets comes off of Hurts' ceiling. but it works in reverse as well. That if Hurts has a big game, Sanders is sitting there not doing much. I wanted to know your thoughts, Stewart, on the Tampa Bay Carolina game, because I like the game, but I have this as the most negative as far as ownership is concerned, because we have Ronald Jones at running back, who figures to be one of the most popular plays on the entire slate, and Antonio Brown on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's 7,000, so maybe not as popular there. 4,900 with Evans and Godwin out and Fournette out. Like, and he's coming back. Like, he's wildly underpriced. I see. And then DJ Moore actually projects well on the Carolina side because Tampa Bay plays fast and the other team tends to throw the ball more against the Tampa Bay defense. Like, how the hell do I play this game and not run into a ton of ownership? Because like Brady plus Brown plus Gronk, that's popular. And then you run it back with DJ Moore. Oh, great. But more chalky pieces to go along with it. And even if you pair Brady, Jones, Brown, now you're still running into ownership. It's like is the way to play this on taking a shot on a Tyler Johnson, like playing a Brady, Johnson, Gronkowski, Robbie Anderson lineup, where you're playing the same game, but you're avoiding the chalk pieces? Or is the better way to just avoid the game?
Yeah, we have it as a minus from a stack standpoint, but I'd be okay with taking like a one-off piece from this game. Like Brown to me seems like just guy. I'm happy taking Antonio Brown, not trying to stack him up with Brady or anything, and just calling it a day. Not super interested in, I guess, like DJ Moore is really the only one that projects with relatively strong value. And I don't know, at this point, like even someone like Robbie Anderson hasn't proved to have like a strong ceiling within this kind of offense and role. Yeah, we have this game as a strong negative as well.
One way to be different in this game, Stewart, is playing the other side, but I'm never a fan of Cam Newton has a ceiling, but I'm never a fan when the coach says that he may not even play all the snaps.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm inclined to say look no further than the game total, but it's not like a terrible game total relative to where some of these other totals stand. But yeah, we have it just as not. I mean, the Carolina total is really pretty paltry. It's Tampa Bay side doesn't look terrible, but you're gonna get the huge ownership. I'm not too interested in stacking from the Carolina side and neither really the Tampa side, but I guess the Tampa side would make more sense to me just on a value standpoint. But in general, would like to be off this game from stacking purposes and really just trying to take a one-off piece. Like honestly, not like super high on Jones relative to his ownership, but like Antonio Brown would be probably the spot I would be most interested in. It's just a one-off.
Yeah, and I play this game in cash. I mean, like in DraftKings cash games, and Jones and Brown will be in my lineup. So like it's not like the value is there. It just comes down to, are they worth their ceiling at their ownership? And an 11-game slate, I think they're over-owned for their likelihood of being in the optimal line.
Yeah.
Any other games on the slate that you wanted to talk about? One thing that we don't see that often: Buffalo with this low of a team total.
Yeah.
I've said the entire year that I have no problem. I have no problem playing Josh Allen on every slate, having one Josh Allen stack, because you never know. But Bill Belichick kind of has his number. I mean, do you think that at that ownership level, because Buffalo is going to be like unowned, I mean, unowned. I mean, depending on if Sanders is back, because now we have Beasley is doubtful. Singletary is kind of taken over the backfield a bit. I don't expect this game to go off at all. I mean, it's maybe one of the lowest probabilities of this game going 60 plus points. But I mean, Gabe Davis was chalk last week at 3,700. He's 4,700, and we currently have him as under 1% owned. Like, why not take a shot on Allen Diggs? Why not do something like, I mean, it sounds disgusting. You play Jacoby Myers on the other side. I mean, Allen's not going to be, I mean, Allen at 3% ownership. I mean, is it just me just kind of like getting drawn in by the raw, like Buffalo pass rate is so high, even though Pat's run rate is very high also, that they're playing in New England. That's not a good thing. That maybe Josh Allen, maybe the Bills go out and put up 38 points this game. I mean, like it's the Bills.
Yeah. We've got a slightly positive kind of middling grade on both sides of the game, slightly higher on New England, actually. I mean, I think an interesting thing is going to be, paying attention to the Beasley news, and like Emmanuel Sanders could be back. I think that would have an impact, obviously, on the viability of Gabe Davis.
But I play Sanders at 4,000.
I mean, I think that definitely could be in play if it kind of shakes out where Beasley's out, Sanders is in. A lot of moving pieces with this game as of now. I think, it looks like a fine spot to try to attack. But definitely got to see how this Buffalo receiving core shakes out heading into the weekend. Allen plus Diggs plus whichever kind of cheap receiver makes the most sense. If Sanders is kind of given the full green light, that could be interesting. I think it makes sense. Like I said, reasonably strong grades on both sides of the game. What do you like thinking about Buffalo? I mean, are you envisioning bringing someone back from New England? The guy that's standing out just from kind of not in a huge way, but just from a number standpoint, is just like forever, never, Jacoby Myers. It's just like, lost a good bit of money trying to,
Well, I want to see if Stewart, I want to see if Damian Harris plays. He's questionable. So if he doesn't, why not Ramondre Stevenson?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I kind of want to look at if news comes in that makes like late news that makes like another running back in that 5K range viable, like that's a way of kind of like getting off some of the more like value running backs. I mean, I'm viewing this slate more that my running back pool is going to be very small because the running back value is so much better than the wide receiver. To me, there pretty much isn't wide receiver value, assuming that Hill and Kelsey play. So I'm much more likely to eat chalk at running back and get different and not play a 30% owned Antonio Brown or a 35% owned Cooper Kupp and try to find a way to be different there than but that all depends on are other running backs going to be viable? Because if it's the type of thing that Damian Harris is like, we'll see on Sunday morning, and then he's ruled out at inactives or something, and it's like, well, Ramondre Stevenson at 4% ownership seems pretty cool to me. Because I mean, he won't project as good as a Justin Jackson or a Ronald Jones, but Ronald Jones will be 30% owned. Stevenson will be 3% owned. And there's no way that they should both be a 10-1 difference there.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I got one more game that I know it's a team you often like. I am concerned that the total, it just on paper looks preventatively low. But we've got it as a good week to stack Las Vegas. Man, 41.5 game total though is quite low.
Do you have Waller in or out?
We have Waller out.
Okay, because I have Waller in, and I say if Waller's in, I don't want to play this game at all.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. We are projecting with Waller out such that like Jacobs looks like a strong play, Renfro looks like a strong play. Naturally.
No, I'd be with you. If Waller's out, like if we see on like Saturday night or something, Waller ain't gonna play. Like people aren't gonna be on this. And you're right. The game total sucks, but I don't mind playing a single digit owned Jacobs and Renfro. Maybe I don't play Carr. Maybe I don't play game stack. Maybe I don't play anyone on Denver. But really, this comes down to if Waller's back, I'm almost more likely to play Waller at 6K than play Jacobs and Renfro because Waller's been out for the past 3 games. And that's kind of when Renfro has turned into Cooper Kupp. And I think with Waller back, I mean, the target shares are going to kind of go back to what they were at the beginning of the season. And I think these guys are maybe slightly overpriced.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. If Waller back would probably reduce the projectable target share for Renfro and Jacobs each, I don't know, 4 to 7 percentage points, I guess. Probably more so for Renfro than Jacobs. What do you make of, I mean, last week people were very excited to play Dolphins against the Jets. Don't see people having much interest in that, doing Jacksonville versus the Jets this week. Right.
James Robinson,
so?
James Robinson or nothing.
Got it.
I mean, this game, to me, this is like the most disgusting game on the entire slate.
Got it.
Maybe you play the defense. You play the defenses.
Yeah. We've got decent grades on Jacksonville. But they didn't do much. They were kind of a trendy play last week. Didn't get huge ownership, but kind of
they lost by double digits to the Texans.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The narrative was that the departure of Urban Meyer would, unlock the Jacksonville offense, and that was not the case. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, we haven't really talked much about Los Angeles versus Houston, probably in part because it just so much is hinged on the Eckler news. Would Eckler being ruled in or out, have a major impact on kind of how you? I mean, obviously, it would have a major impact.
Yes, obviously, it has a major impact.
Yeah.
And if Eckler is ruled back in, that'll eliminate the Justin Jackson ownership, right? It'll bump up Ronald Jones, James Robinson, David Montgomery ownership. Eckler back in will decrease the ownership of like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I mean, I view this game as neutral. I don't want to play anyone on the Texans. I think a way to play this game, if Eckler is out and you don't want to play Justin Jackson, play a Herbert double stack. But I also think that you could play Herbert plus Jackson plus Williams or Allen or Cook or something like that and play it that way. I think Nico Collins at 3,400 is you could play as a run back, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what's going, Brandon Cooks is gone, right? So like it all, that's why we're having this conversation. Like I always have to ask you, like, do you have these guys in or out? Like when you mentioned the Raiders, it's like, well, with Waller in, I don't agree with you. And the same thing for the Chiefs. So I prefer the stack more if Jackson is in, only because I think that the ownership of the other Chargers goes down and I get leverage off of a $4,200 Justin Jackson. And then if Eckler's in, I almost feel like I'd rather Eckler is the leverage, right? To play a high priced running back on the slate where most people are playing low price running backs.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and with Eckler out, I mean, I think we've seen at times Herbert can be a pretty productive runner near the goal line. And so much of the ownership is going to flock to Jackson. I think maybe going, with a Los Angeles stack gives you some leverage against that. And Houston, could be a spot where you're just not bringing anyone back. Man, they're really trotting out a JV team out there this week. Yeah, I mean, I guess Nico Collins is going to be wide receiver 1 at 3,400, I think.
What does wide receiver 1 mean on the Texans?
Yeah, right. I mean,
because it could be
fair.
Chris Conley. Brevin Jordan could have 18 targets. Who knows? I mean, look at this team. It could be anything.
Yep. Anything else? I feel like we actually touched on most of the games.
Well, I mean, people could get your metrics and everything as the hamster wheels run, right? You probably have to wait until probably Saturday to send it out at this point till we see who's going to be back and forward from. There are people that we've talked about on this slate that may not even play on Sunday. I mean, that we don't even know are going to test positive or something's going to happen. So the best way is to go to advancedsportsanalytics.com and get on the Substack, because maybe you'll send out 2. A Christmas gift you'll send out 2 if anything changes.
Yeah, I think gonna limit it to 1. Yeah, I'm not sure what the timing is gonna be, with the holidays and stuff. Between Saturday being Christmas and just all the inactive stuff, I almost wonder if getting up early Sunday and just doing a last minute Sunday run through makes sense. But yes, we'll have the Substack out. Yeah, breaking down some of the metrics that we've talked through on this show and on all the previous shows. So follow the ASA Twitter, I think, is probably the best resource for understanding when that comes out. We post the links whether you're a subscriber to the Substack or to the site. Yeah, I think that's a good place to keep your eyes tuned into.
And you could follow on Twitter AS Analytics DFS or Start Gibson for Stewart. I'm at Blender HD. And hopefully everyone has happy holidays, happy whatever you celebrate, and hopefully everything we talked about makes some sense come Sunday. And we'll see what happens. We've got 2 more weeks left after this. There may be even more that we may be looking at week 17 as, oh my God, I wish it was as tame as it was the week before, but we'll see. We'll see next week on another edition of the Advanced Sports Analytics Show here on RotoGrinders.com.